My fiancée made fun of my career at her office party. The champagne flute trembled slightly in my hand as I heard Sarah's laughter ring out across the crowded conference room. It wasn't her usual warm laugh, the one that had made me fall in love with her 3 years ago. This was different, sharper somehow, designed to draw attention. "Oh, Marcus builds websites," she said, her voice carrying that particular tone I'd never heard her use before. "You know, for small businesses, mom and pop shops, that sort of thing." She waved her hand dismissively, and I watched as her colleagues, all dressed in their expensive suits and designer dresses, exchanged knowing glances. I stood frozen near the buffet table holding a small plate of hors d'oeuvres I no longer had any appetite for. This was supposed to be a celebration. Sarah had just been promoted to senior vice president at Hartman and Associates, one of the city's most prestigious investment firms. I was proud of her. I'd always been proud of her. But standing there in my off-the-rack blazer, listening to her reduce my entire career to a punchline, I felt something crack inside me. "It's cute, really," Sarah continued, taking a sip of her champagne. "He gets so excited about helping these little businesses get online. Last week, he spent 3 days designing a website for a bakery." A bakery. The group around her erupted in laughter, and I saw Gerald Hartman himself, the company's CEO, chuckle and shake his head. I set my plate down on the nearest table and made my way through the crowd. Sarah's back was to me, her new promotion apparently having transformed her into someone I didn't recognize. She was gesturing animatedly, her diamond engagement ring, the one I'd saved for months to afford, catching the light. "The owner actually cried when she saw the website," Sarah was saying. "Can you imagine crying over a website? Marcus came home like he'd just cured cancer or something." "Well," said a man I recognized as Derek, one of Sarah's colleagues, "I suppose someone has to do the simpler work. Not everyone can handle high-stakes finance." "Exactly," Sarah exclaimed. "That's what I keep telling him. He has this whole philosophy about making technology accessible and empowering small businesses. It's sweet, but—" She trailed off, shrugging. I cleared my throat. "Sarah." She spun around, and for just a moment I saw something flicker across her face, guilt maybe, or surprise. But it was quickly replaced by a bright, false smile. "Marcus." "There you are, honey. I was just telling everyone about your little web design business." "I heard," I said quietly. The group had fallen silent, and I could feel their eyes on me, evaluating. I knew what they saw: a 32-year-old man in a decent but unremarkable suit, with calloused hands from the carpentry work I still did on weekends, standing next to their polished, successful colleague. Sarah must have seen it too, because she quickly linked her arm through mine. "Everyone, this is Marcus, my fiancé," she said, her voice pitched just a bit too high. "Marcus, you know Derek, and this is Patricia, our head of acquisitions, and Mr. Hartman, of course." I shook hands politely, noting how Derek's grip was deliberately firm, as if he were trying to establish dominance. Patricia barely made eye contact, and Mr. Hartman gave me the kind of smile usually reserved for children and pets. "So," Derek said, his tone conversational but his eyes sharp, "Sarah tells us you make websites for small businesses. That must be rewarding." The way he said rewarding made it clear he meant the opposite. "It is," I replied simply. "And do you have many clients?" Patricia asked, examining her manicured nails. "Or is it more of a hobby?" "I have 43 active clients and a waiting list," I said. "Last year, my work helped generate over $2 million in additional revenue for local businesses in our community." Sarah's grip on my arm tightened. "He likes to keep track of these little statistics," she said, with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "Marcus is very thorough. Little statistics." I turned to look at her. Sarah, the Patterson family, was able to keep their restaurant open because of the online ordering system I built for them. Mrs. Chen's boutique saw a 300% increase in sales after Genie. I'm sure that's all very nice, Mr. Hartman interrupted, but we're talking about rather different scales here. Just last week, our team completed a merger worth $800 million. Congratulations, I said evenly. How many jobs did that create? There was a moment of silence. Derek laughed uncomfortably. Well, with mergers, there's always some restructuring. Efficiency is key in modern business. How many jobs were lost? I pressed. Sarah's nails dug into my arm. Marcus, about 1,200, Patricia said coolly. But the shareholder value, 1,200 families lost their income so shareholders could see a bump in their portfolios, I said. Last month, I helped a single mother of three launch an online tutoring business. She's now making enough to pay her rent and put food on the table. Tell me which of us is doing more valuable work. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel Sarah trembling beside me, though whether from anger or embarrassment I couldn't tell. Derek's face had turned red, and Mr. Hartman was looking at me with an expression that suggested I'd just defecated on his Italian leather shoes. I think, Sarah said, her voice tight, Marcus is tired. It's been a long day. Perhaps we should. No, I said gently but firmly, removing her hand from my arm. I'm not tired, Sarah. I'm disappointed. I turned to address the group, but my words were really for her. I've spent the last 5 years building something I believe in. Every website I create, every system I design helps real people with real dreams make a living. Mrs. Rodriguez, who started selling her homemade salsa online and now employs 6 people from her neighborhood. Jim Thompson, the veteran who turned his woodworking hobby into a business that supports his family. The teenage kid who started a computer repair service and is now paying his way through college. I looked directly at Sarah. I've sat at our kitchen table and told you these stories. I've shared my excitement when a client succeeds, my frustration when a project hits a snag. I thought you understood. I thought you were proud of me the way I've always been proud of you. Sarah's face had gone pale. Marcus, you're making a scene. No, Sarah. You made a scene. You stood here in front of your colleagues and your boss and mocked everything I've worked for. You reduced my career to a cute little hobby for their amusement. Why, I didn't mean. She stopped, glanced at Mr. Hartman, then back at me. You don't understand the pressure I'm under here, the expectations. Everyone here has partners who are doctors, lawyers, other executives, and I have someone who builds websites for bakeries. I finished for her. Someone who gets excited about helping small businesses succeed. Someone who apparently embarrasses you. That's not fair, she protested, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? I reached into my pocket and pulled out my car keys. I'll wait for you in the car. Take all the time you need to properly distance yourself from your embarrassing fiancé and his little web design business. I turned to leave, but Mr. Hartman's voice stopped me. Young man, he said, his tone condescending. You clearly don't understand how the real world works. Business is about profit growth, market dominance. Your noble intentions are admirable, I suppose, but ultimately naive. I turned back to face him. With all due respect, Mr. Hartman, I understand exactly how your world works. I also understand that there's more than one way to define success. You measure it in dollars and market share. I measure it in the number of dreams I help become reality. The difference is, at the end of the day, I can sleep soundly, knowing that my work makes the world a little better, not just richer. I looked at Sarah one last time. I'll be in the car, but we need to talk about whether this, I gestured between us, is still what you want. Because I won't apologize for who I am or what I do. Not for them and not for you. I walked out of the conference room with my head held high, but inside my heart was breaking. The woman I'd fallen in love with, the woman who used to stay up late, helping me brainstorm solutions for clients who celebrated with me. When Mrs. Patterson sent us a photo of her packed restaurant, that woman seemed to have disappeared, replaced by someone who saw my life's work as something to be ashamed of. The parking garage was cold and quiet. I sat in my 10-year-old Honda Civic, another source of embarrassment for Sarah apparently, and tried to process what had just happened. My phone buzzed with a text from one of my clients thanking me for the recent updates to their site and sharing that they'd just hit their highest sales day ever. Normally, that would have made me smile. Tonight, it just made the ache in my chest worse. 20 minutes later, Sarah appeared. She slid into the passenger seat without a word, and we drove home in silence. It wasn't until we were in our apartment, the place we'd shared for the past 2 years, that she finally spoke. "You humiliated me," she said, her voice cold. "In front of my boss, my colleagues, people whose opinions matter to my career. I humiliated you." I set down my keys carefully, trying to control my anger. "Sarah, you spent 10 minutes making fun of my career for their entertainment. You called my work cute and little, and acted like I was some kind of hobbyist playing at business. Because compared to what we do, it is little," she exploded. "Do you have any idea what I deal with every day? The pressure, the competition I'm working with, billions of dollars, Marcus, billions. And you're excited about a bakery website." "Yes, I am," I said firmly. "Because that bakery is owned by Mrs. Chen, who came to this country with nothing and built a business with her own hands. Because that website I built helps her reach customers she never could before. Because her 16-year-old daughter told me she's proud of her mother for the first time in years." Sarah threw her hands up. "There you go again with the sob stories. Not everything has to be some grand narrative, Marcus. Sometimes business is just business." "Is that what we are?" I asked quietly. "Just business. Is that why you're marrying me, because I'm bad for your image?" She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was smaller. "I love you, Marcus. You know I do. But lately, I look around at my colleagues, at their lives, their partners, and I wonder, if you're settling—" I finished. She didn't deny it. I walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, the Pattersons were probably closing up their restaurant for the night, tired but satisfied. Mrs. Chen was likely planning tomorrow's specials. Jim Thompson might be working late in his workshop, filling orders that came through his website. "Do you remember," I said, not turning around, "when we first met, you were just starting at Hartman and I was launching my business. You used to say you admired my passion, my desire to help people. You said it was refreshing after spending all day in a world where the only thing that mattered was the bottom line." "I was young," Sarah said softly. "Naive. I didn't understand then what it takes to succeed in my world." "And what does it take?" I asked, finally facing her. "Apparently, it takes mocking the person you claim to love in front of your coworkers. It takes being ashamed of someone who's building something meaningful just because it doesn't come with a six-figure salary in a corner office." "You're twisting my words." "Am I? Tell me, Sarah, when was the last time you asked about my work? When was the last time you showed genuine interest in one of my projects?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again. "That's what I thought," I said, sadly. "Somewhere along the way, you stopped seeing value in what I do. Maybe you stopped seeing value in me." "That's not true," she protested, but tears were forming in her eyes. I work so hard, Marcus. I've sacrificed so much to get where I am. And sometimes I feel like you don't understand that, like, you judge me for caring about money and success. I've never judged you for your ambition," I said. "I've supported you through every late night, every weekend at the office, every missed dinner. I've been your biggest cheerleader. All I've ever asked is that you show me the same respect." "But it's not the same," she cried. "You're content with your little business, your small clients, your feel-good stories. You have no ambition to grow to be more than what." I challenged. more than someone who loves his work, more than someone who makes a difference in people's lives. Tell me, Sarah, what exactly should I aspire to be? Another suit at Hartman and Associates, moving money around to make rich people richer. At least you'd be successful. The word hung in the air between us like a blade. I am successful, I said quietly. Just not by your definition, or, apparently, by the definition of the people whose approval you value more than our relationship. Sarah sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. I don't know when everything got so complicated, she whispered. I love you, Marcus, but I also love my career, and the two don't seem to fit together anymore. I sat down beside her, though I didn't touch her. They could fit together if you weren't ashamed of me. I'm not. She stopped, unable to finish the lie. Maybe I am a little. God, that makes me a terrible person, doesn't it? It makes you human, I said. But it also makes you someone I'm not sure I can marry. She looked up sharply. Marcus, I can't spend my life with someone who sees my work as something to apologize for, I continued. I can't build a future with someone who thinks I need to be more to be worthy of respect. And I definitely can't stand by while you turn me into a punchline for your colleagues' amusement. It won't happen again, she said quickly. I promise. I was just nervous trying to fit in. That's the problem, Sarah. You were so busy trying to fit into their world that you forgot you already belong in mine. Or maybe you've decided you don't want to belong in mine anymore. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Sarah spoke, her voice barely audible. What happens now? I looked at the engagement ring on her finger, remembering the day I'd proposed. We'd been at the beach, and she'd been telling me about a difficult day at work. I'd listened, offered support, and then gotten down on one knee right there in the sand. She'd said yes immediately, crying and laughing at the same time. That felt like a lifetime ago. I said slowly, we need to take some time apart, figure out what we really want, what really matters to us. You're breaking up with me. She sounded shocked, as if she hadn't considered this possibility. I'm giving us both a chance to think, I corrected. You need to decide if you can truly accept and respect who I am and what I do. And I need to decide if I can be with someone who might always see me as not quite good enough. Sarah was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. I never meant for it to go this far. I just wanted them to respect me, to see me as one of them. And you thought the way to do that was to diminish me? I asked gently. Sarah, anyone who requires you to belittle the people you love to earn their respect isn't worth impressing. You don't understand the pressure. You're right, I interrupted. I don't understand the pressure of your world, but you don't understand the joy of mine either. The difference is, I've never asked you to. I've never suggested you quit your job or change careers. I've never made fun of your work to make myself feel better. I've simply loved you and supported you. That's all I've ever asked in return. She wiped her eyes, smearing her carefully applied makeup. Where will you go? Jim Thompson, the woodworker I told you about, has a spare room. He's offered it to me before when I've worked late on his projects. I'll stay there for a while. For how long? I don't know, I admitted. As long as it takes for both of us to figure out what we really want. I stood up and walked to our bedroom to pack a bag. As I folded clothes and gathered essentials, I could hear Sarah crying in the living room. Part of me wanted to go to her, to hold her and tell her everything would be okay. But I couldn't. Not this time. Some wounds cut too deep to be healed with a hug and empty reassurance. When I emerged with my bag, Sarah was standing by the window, looking out at the same view I'd been contemplating earlier. I do love you, she said without turning around. Whatever else you think, please believe that. I believe you, I said. But sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes respect matters more. I paused at the door. My clients, the ones you made fun of tonight, they're good people, Sarah. People with dreams and fears and families to support. They're not lesser because they don't work in glass towers or move millions of dollars around. They're the backbone of our community, and I'm honored to help them succeed. I just wish you could see that. Maybe I can, she said, finally turning to face me. Maybe with time I can remember why I fell in love with your passion in the first place. Maybe, I agreed. But you need to figure that out for yourself, not for me. And certainly not for Mr. Hartman or Derek or anyone else at that party tonight. I opened the door, then looked back one last time. The ring, I said gently. You should keep it for now. But maybe don't wear it until you're sure you want what it represents. All of what it represents. She nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. I'm sorry, Marcus. I'm so sorry. I know, I said. So am I. I left then, closing the door quietly behind me. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed again. Another client excited about increased traffic to their site. This time, I did smile even through my own sadness. Tomorrow, I'd be back at my desk building dreams and empowering entrepreneurs. It might not be the kind of success Sarah and her colleagues understood, but it was mine and I wouldn't apologize for it. The drive to Jim's house was quiet, but my mind was anything but. I thought about the journey that had brought me to this point, the corporate job I'd left 5 years ago, the leap of faith into entrepreneurship, the late nights learning new coding languages and design principles. I thought about every client who trusted me with their vision, every small business owner who'd taken a chance on a guy with a laptop and a belief that technology should be accessible to everyone. Jim was waiting for me when I arrived, a beer in each hand. Saw your car coming up the drive, he said, simply handing me one. The room's ready. Stay as long as you need. That was Jim, no questions, no judgment, just solid support. His workshop smelled of sawdust and varnish, familiar and comforting. We sat on his back porch looking out at the pieces of furniture in various stages of completion. You know, Jim said after a while, I never thanked you properly for that website. My daughter, she's in college now studying business. She tells her professors about how I turned things around, how I went from barely scraping by to running a real business. She uses me as a case study in her entrepreneurship class. I took a sip of beer, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with alcohol. That's amazing, Jim. The thing is, he continued, she always mentions you. The web designer who didn't just build a site but taught an old woodworker how to tell his story online. Her professor wants to meet you, actually. Says you're doing the kind of work they talk about in theory but rarely see in practice. I'm just building websites, I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew they weren't true. Sarah's dismissive comments had stung precisely because they'd reduced my work to its most basic components, ignoring everything else. No, Jim said firmly. You're building futures. There's a difference. We sat in comfortable silence, and I found myself thinking about all the entrepreneurs I'd worked with over the years. The immigrant families starting restaurants, the veterans launching service businesses, the stay-at-home parents creating online stores. Each of them had taken a risk, followed a dream, and trusted me to help them reach people they couldn't reach on their own. My phone rang. Sarah's name appeared on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. You want to talk about it? Jim asked. Not really, I said. Not yet, he nodded. Fair enough. But Marcus, can I say something? Sure. I've been married 32 years. You know what I've learned? The person you marry doesn't have to understand everything about your work. Hell, my wife still can't tell oak from pine. But they do have to respect it. They have to see that it matters to you, and that should be enough to make it matter to them. Sarah used to, I said quietly. When she was just starting out, she'd help me brainstorm marketing strategies for clients. She'd get excited about their successes. Somewhere along the way, that changed. Or maybe she did, Jim suggested. Success can do that to people. Make them forget where they came from, what really matters. Maybe I agreed. Or maybe she just figured out what she really values, and it isn't what I do. Then that's her loss, Jim said simply. Come on, I'll show you the room. And tomorrow, if you're up for it, I could use some help photographing the new dining set. My old pictures aren't doing it justice. I smiled, the first genuine smile since Sarah had started her performance at the party. I'd be happy to help. As I settled into Jim's spare room that night, I thought about paths not taken. I could have stayed in corporate America climbing the ladder, chasing the kind of success Sarah now valued. I probably would have made more money, had more prestige. But I also would have missed out on the joy of watching small businesses flourish, of being part of so many American dreams. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Sarah and a string of text messages. I'd read them tomorrow. Tonight I needed to remind myself why I'd chosen this path in the first place. I pulled out my laptop and opened my email. There were new inquiries from potential clients, updates from existing ones, and a message that made me pause. It was from Maria Rodriguez, one of my first clients. Marcus, I wanted you to know that we just signed a distribution deal with a major grocery chain. My salsa will be in stores across 3 states. None of this would have been possible without the online presence you helped me create. My husband and I were talking tonight about how you believed in us when nobody else would. You didn't see a middle-aged woman with a salsa recipe. You saw a business owner with potential. Thank you for that. P.S. My son just started his own online tutoring business. I gave him your number. I hope that's okay. I read the email twice, feeling a familiar warmth spread through my chest. This was why I did what I did. Not for the money, though I made a comfortable living. Not for the prestige, though the respect of my clients meant everything to me. I did it because every website I built was a doorway to possibility, every online store a chance for someone to change their life. Sarah had stood in that conference room and reduced all of this to a punchline. She'd taken something beautiful and meaningful and made it small for the amusement of people who measured worth in dollars and market share. The pain of that betrayal sat heavy in my chest, but underneath it was something else: clarity. I knew who I was. I knew the value of my work, and I knew that I'd rather be alone than with someone who couldn't see it too. The next morning came too soon. I woke to the smell of coffee and bacon, finding Jim already up and working in his shop. We ate breakfast together, talking about wood grain and joint techniques, carefully avoiding any mention of the previous night. I've got client meetings today, I said, checking my calendar. 3 consultations and a launch review. You can use the dining room table as an office, Jim offered. It's quiet, good light. Whatever you need. I spent the morning on video calls, discussing SEO strategies with a local bookstore owner, reviewing design mock-ups with a fitness instructor, launching online classes, and celebrating with the owner of a pet grooming service whose online booking system had streamlined her entire operation. Each conversation reminded me why I loved this work. These weren't just clients, they were partners in building something meaningful. Around noon, my phone rang. Not Sarah this time, but a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Marcus Chen?" a professional voice asked. "Yes, this is Marcus." "Mr. Chen, my name is Professor Elizabeth Hawthorne. I teach entrepreneurship at the State University. Jim Thompson's daughter is one of my students, and she's told me about your work with her father and other small business owners in the community." "Oh yes, Jim mentioned that," I said, curious where this was going. "I'll cut to the chase, Mr. Chen. I'm developing a new course on accessible technology and small business empowerment. I'd like to invite you to be a guest lecturer. Your approach, focusing on storytelling and community building rather than just technical features, is exactly what my students need to hear." I was speechless for a moment. "I'm honored, Professor Hawthorne, but I'm not an academic. I don't have an MBA or—" "Mr. Chen," she interrupted gently, "some of the most valuable lessons come from practitioners, not theorists. You've helped dozens of small businesses succeed in the digital age. That real-world experience is invaluable. Plus, my students could learn a lot from someone who measures success in community impact, not just profit margins. We talked for another 20 minutes, and by the time I hung up, I'd agreed to guest lecture the following month. As I set down my phone, I realized I was smiling. Here was validation from an unexpected source, not that I needed it, but it felt good nonetheless. The afternoon brought more client work, including a particularly satisfying session with a young woman starting a mobile car detailing service. She reminded me of myself 5 years ago, full of ideas and determination, but overwhelmed by the technical side of building an online presence. By the end of our consultation, she was excited and confident, ready to take on the digital world. As evening approached, I finally checked Sarah's messages. They range from angry, "How dare you embarrass me like that?" to pleading, "Please come home so we can talk," to resigned, "I understand if you need space." The last one, sent just an hour ago, was different. "Marcus, I've been thinking all day about what you said. About what I said. I'm so ashamed. I keep replaying the night in my head, hearing my own words, and I can't believe that was me. I don't know when I became someone who would hurt you like that for the approval of people who don't even matter. I'm not asking you to come back. I know I need to figure some things out. But I wanted you to know that I heard you. Really heard you. And you were right about everything." I stared at the message for a long time, unsure how to respond. Part of me wanted to call her to try to bridge the gap that had opened between us. But another part, the part that had stood in that conference room and defended my life's work, knew it was too soon. Sarah needed to do more than feel guilty. She needed to understand why she'd felt the need to diminish me in the first place. Jim found me on the porch as the sun was setting. "Good day?" he asked, handing me another beer. "Actually, yeah," I said, telling him about the university call. "It's strange. Last night I was being mocked for my work, and today I'm being asked to teach others about it." "Not strange at all," Jim said. "The people who matter see the value in what you do. The ones who don't, well, their opinion doesn't much matter, does it? Even when you're engaged to one of them. Especially then," he said seriously. "Marcus, you can't build a life with someone who doesn't respect the foundation of who you are. That's like trying to build furniture with wood that's rotted at the core. Might look fine on the outside, but it won't hold weight." That night, I responded to Sarah's text with a simple message. "I hear you too. Take the time you need. We both should." The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. I worked from Jim's dining room table, met with clients, and slowly built a new routine. The university lecture went better than I'd expected. The students were engaged and full of questions, and Professor Hawthorne invited me back for a follow-up session. Sarah and I exchanged occasional texts, careful and polite. She told me about therapy sessions she'd started, about realizing how much her self-worth had become tied to her colleagues' approval. I told her about new clients, about the satisfaction of seeing businesses grow. We were talking, but not really communicating. Not yet. One evening, about a month after the party, I received an unexpected visitor. Mr. Chen, no relation despite the shared surname from the bakery, arrived at Jim's house with a box of pastries and a nervous smile. "I hope I'm not intruding," he said, "but I had to thank you in person." "Thank you for what?" I asked, inviting him in. "For changing our lives," Mrs. Chen said simply. "The website you built, the online ordering system, we've hired 2 more employees. My daughter is working with us part-time, learning the business. We're even looking at a second location." We sat at Jim's kitchen table, eating still warm pastries and talking about their plans. Mr. Chen pulled out his phone to show me pictures of their expanded shop, their new employees, their daughter proudly wearing an apron with the bakery's logo, the one I'd designed. "You know," Mrs. Chen said, "when we first came to you, we were just hoping to survive. Now we're thriving. And it's not just the money. It's the community we've built online, the customers who share our story, who bring their friends. You didn't just build us a website, you gave us a voice." After they left, I sat alone in the kitchen thinking about Sarah's words at the party. He spent 3 days designing a website for a bakery. A bakery. She'd said it like it was something ridiculous, something beneath consideration. But those 3 days had changed the trajectory of an entire family. How was that not worth celebrating? My phone buzzed. Another text from Sarah. I drove by the Chen's bakery today. There was a line out the door. I went in and bought a chocolate croissant. Mrs. Chen recognized me, asked about you. She told me about their expansion plans, about how none of it would have been possible without you. I sat in my car afterward and cried. I'm so sorry, Marcus. I'm so sorry for not seeing what you see. I read the message several times, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Sorry was a start, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. 2 months after the party, Sarah called. Not a text, but an actual call. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, she began. But I have something to tell you. I quit Hartman and Associates. I nearly dropped the phone. You what? I quit, she repeated. Or rather, I gave my notice. My last day is in 2 weeks. Sarah, why you worked so hard for that promotion? For all the wrong reasons, she interrupted. Marcus, these past 2 months have been hell, but they've also been the most enlightening of my life. I've been going to therapy, really examining why I acted the way I did, why I was so desperate for their approval that I'd hurt the person I love most. I stayed quiet, letting her talk. Do you know what I realized? I don't even like most of those people. Derek is a narcissist. Patricia hasn't had an original thought in years, and Mr. Hartman, God, that man has made millions by stepping on others. And I wanted to be just like them. I wanted it so badly that Her voice broke. Sarah, no, let me finish. After you left that night, Derek actually said to me, good riddance. You can do better than some small-time web designer. And I just stood there. I didn't defend you. I was too worried about fitting in to defend the man I'm supposed to marry. What kind of person does that make me? A person who lost her way, I said gently. It happens. I've been so focused on climbing the ladder that I forgot to check if it was leaning against the right wall, she continued. I'm not quitting finance entirely, but I've been talking to some nonprofit organizations, places that help small businesses get funding and support. Places where my skills could actually make a difference like yours do. That's a big change, I said carefully. It is. And I'm not doing it for you. I need you to know that. I'm doing it for me. Because I looked in the mirror and didn't like who I was becoming. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't hope. Maybe someday. Sarah, I said softly, I'm proud of you for making this change. But you're right, you need to do it for yourself. Figure out who you are when you're not trying to impress anyone else. I know, she whispered. I just wanted you to know. And Marcus, the ring. I haven't worn it since that night. It's in my jewelry box waiting. Maybe someday I'll deserve to wear it again. Maybe not. But either way, I needed you to know that I finally understand what you tried to tell me. Success isn't about the size of the deal or the number of zeros in your salary. It's about the lives you touch, the difference you make. After we hung up, I sat on Jim's porch for a long time processing the conversation. Part of me wanted to rush back to tell her all was forgiven. But the wiser part knew that real change took time. Sarah had taken the first steps, but there was still a long road ahead for both of us. The months that followed brought unexpected developments. My guest lectures at the university became a regular thing, eventually evolving into a partnership where I mentored student entrepreneurs. Several of my clients expanded their businesses significantly, and referrals poured in faster than I could handle them. I hired my first employee, Amy, a recent graduate who shared my passion for accessible technology and small business empowerment. Together, we took on larger projects while maintaining the personal touch that had always defined my work. Sarah and I began meeting for coffee once a month. Neutral ground, no pressure. She told me about her new job at a nonprofit that provided microloans to small business owners. Her eyes lit up when she talked about her clients the same way mine did. She was rediscovering the person she'd been before Hartman and Associates had gotten its hooks into her. I helped a food truck owner secure funding last week, she told me during one of our coffee meetings. She's a single mom, started the business after her husband died. When she got approved for the loan, she hugged me and cried. It was just $50,000 pocket change by Hartman standards, but it's going to change her life. Now you understand, I said simply. I do, she agreed. Marcus, I know I have no right to ask, but is there any chance for us? Any possibility that we could try again? I'd been expecting this question for weeks. I don't know, I answered honestly. What you did that night, Sarah, it wasn't just about embarrassing me. It was about fundamentally not seeing me, not valuing what I value. That's not something that can be fixed with an apology or even a career change. I know, she said, tears in her eyes. But I've changed, Marcus. These past 6 months, have you? I interrupted gently. Or are you just in a different environment? What happens the next time you're in a room full of people you want to impress? What happens when someone makes a dismissive comment about your nonprofit work, about how you're wasting your talent on small potatoes? Will you stand firm, or will you laugh along to fit in? She was quiet for a long moment. I want to say I'd stand firm, but you're right, I haven't been tested yet. Not really. Then maybe that's what we both need, I suggested. Time to be tested. Time to be sure of who we are separately before we can even think about who we might be together. It was another 3 months before that test came in an unexpected way. I was attending a tech conference presenting on a panel about small business digital transformation. The conference was a mix of corporate types and entrepreneurs, and I'd just finished sharing a case study about one of my clients when someone in the audience stood up. It was Derek from Hartman and Associates. Mr. Chen, he said, his tone as condescending as I remembered, while your little stories are heartwarming, don't you think you're selling these business owners a fantasy? In today's economy, most small businesses fail. Wouldn't it be more ethical to encourage them to seek employment with established companies rather than chase unrealistic dreams? The room fell silent. I could feel the tension, the divide between those who agreed with Derek and those who didn't. I took a breath, ready to respond, when another voice spoke up from the back of the room. With all due respect, that's exactly the kind of thinking that keeps wealth concentrated in the hands of a few while everyone else struggles to get by. I turned to see Sarah standing at the back of the conference room, wearing a simple business suit, a far cry from the designer outfits she used to favor. Small businesses employ nearly half of all American workers. She continued, walking forward. They drive innovation, serve communities that larger corporations ignore, and give people the chance to build something of their own. What Mr. Chen does, what we should all be doing, is leveling the playing field so that entrepreneurship isn't just for the privileged few. Derek's face had gone red. Ms. Williams, what are you doing here? I thought you'd left finance for some charity work. I left Hartman and Associates for meaningful work, Sarah corrected. And I'm here because Mr. Chen's approach to small business empowerment directly aligns with our nonprofit's mission. We've actually been referring many of our loan recipients to him for digital strategy support. She looked at me, then a small smile on her face. The results have been exceptional. Businesses that work with Mr. Chen see an average revenue increase of 240% in their first year online. That's not fantasy, that's data. Derek spluttered something about unsustainable growth, but the moderator had already moved on to the next question. Sarah found a seat in the middle of the room, close enough that I could see her, but not so close as to presume anything. After the panel, I was surrounded by people wanting to exchange cards and discuss potential collaborations. Through it all, I was aware of Sarah waiting patiently off to the side. When the crowd finally thinned, she approached. "Thank you," I said simply. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," she replied. "Not for you. Well, Not just for you, for every small business owner in that room who needed to hear that their dreams matter. Derek's an ass. I can't believe I ever wanted his approval. People change, I said. You did. I'm trying to, she corrected. Every day I'm trying to be better than I was. Some days are easier than others. We walked out of the conference center together, falling into step naturally despite the months of separation. I heard about your expansion, Sarah said. Jim told me you've hired 2 more people and moved into actual office space. Jim's got a big mouth, I said with a smile. But yeah, things are going well. Too well to handle alone anymore. Amy's been amazing and the new hires are passionate about the mission. I'm glad, she said sincerely. You deserve all the success in the world, Marcus. You always have. We reached the parking lot, both hesitating by our cars. Sarah, I began, then stopped unsure how to continue. I know, she said softly. I broke something between us. Something that might not be fixable. But I want you to know that even if we never find our way back to each other, you changed my life. You showed me what real success looks like, what real meaning looks like. I'll always be grateful for that. You changed mine too, I admitted. Maybe not in the way either of us expected, but I'm stronger now, more sure of who I am and what I want. And what do you want? She asked, vulnerability clear in her voice. I thought about it for a long moment. I want a partner who sees me, really sees me, who understands that success comes in many forms, and that changing lives doesn't always mean moving millions of dollars. I want someone who's proud of what I do, not in spite of it being small, but because of the difference it makes. I see you, Sarah said quietly. I see you now. The question is whether that's enough, whether it's too late. I don't know, I said honestly. But maybe we could find out, slowly, carefully. I'd like that, she said, tears forming in her eyes. No pressure, no expectations, just possibility. Just possibility, I agreed. We didn't hug or kiss. We simply stood there for a moment, 2 people who had loved and hurt each other, wondering if they could find a way forward. The next few months were a delicate dance. Sarah and I began spending time together again, but differently than before. We attended each other's work events. She came to my client launches. I accompanied her to nonprofit fundraisers. We learned about each other's transformed careers, sharing successes and challenges without judgment. I watched her stand up to former colleagues who questioned her career change, defending her choice with passion and conviction. She watched me turn down lucrative contracts that would have required compromising my values, supporting my decisions even when they meant less financial gain. Slowly, tentatively, we began to rebuild. Not the relationship we'd had that was gone forever, but something new, something built on mutual respect and understanding. One evening, almost a year after that fateful office party, we were having dinner at the Patterson's restaurant, the one I'd helped save with an online ordering system. Mrs. Patterson herself served us, beaming as she told us about their record-breaking month. None of this would have been possible without you, she told me, squeezing my shoulder. You believed in us when the banks wouldn't even return our calls. After she left, Sarah reached across the table and took my hand. I have something to tell you, she said. I've been offered a position, senior director at a new foundation focused on technology access for underserved entrepreneurs. It would mean working closely with people like you, web designers, app developers, digital strategists, to provide free or low-cost services to small business owners who can't afford market rates. Sarah, that's amazing, I said, genuinely excited. It's perfect for you. There's more, she continued. They want me to help identify partners for the program, technical partners who share our values and understand our mission. I was hoping, would your company be interested? I squeezed her hand. Are you asking as a professional or as both? She said simply. Marcus, this year has been the hardest and most transformative of my life. I've learned who I am when I'm not trying to impress anyone. I've found work that matters to me the way yours matters to you. And through it all, I've never stopped loving you. I know I hurt you terribly. I know trust once broken is hard to rebuild. But if you're willing to try, really try, so am I. I looked at her across the table, this woman who had hurt me so deeply and yet had worked so hard to change. The Sarah sitting before me now wasn't the one who had mocked my career at her office party. This was someone who had faced her own shortcomings and chosen growth over comfort. I've never stopped loving you either, I admitted. But love wasn't enough before. What makes you think it would be now? Because now I understand that love without respect is just possession, she said. And respect without understanding is just performance. I don't just love you, Marcus. I respect what you do. I understand why you do it. And I want to spend my life with someone who makes the world better, one small business at a time. Even if it means you'll never have the corner office or the seven-figure deals, I asked, needing to be sure. Especially then, she said firmly. I've had the corner office. I've closed the big deals. They left me empty. What fills me now is knowing that my work matters, that I'm helping people achieve their dreams. Sound familiar? I stood up and walked around to her side of the table, pulling her to her feet. There's something I need to know, I said. Do you still have the ring? Her breath caught. Yes. It's in my apartment in the same jewelry box where I put it that night. I couldn't bear to look at it, but I couldn't give it up either. Maybe it's time to take it out, I suggested. Not to wear, not yet, but maybe to look at it and think about what it represents, what it could represent again. Marcus, are you saying? I'm saying that people can change, I said. They can grow. They can become better versions of themselves. You've proved that. And maybe I've changed too. Maybe I've learned that forgiveness is just as important as standing your ground. That second chances, when earned, can lead to something even stronger than what came before. Sarah was crying now, not bothering to wipe away the tears. I want to earn it, she whispered. Every day I want to earn the right to be with you, to support you, to celebrate your victories and stand by you when things get tough, to never ever make you feel small or less than for following your passion. Then let's try, I said, pulling her into my arms for the first time in a year. Let's try to build something new, something based on who we are now, not who we were then. She buried her face in my chest, and I could feel her tears soaking through my shirt. Around us, the restaurant continued its busy evening service, families sharing meals, couples on dates, business partners discussing plans. All of them there because a small business had survived and thrived, because technology had connected them to this place and these people. I want to show you something, Sarah said, pulling back and wiping her eyes. She took out her phone and opened a presentation. This is my proposal for the foundation. Look at the impact projections. I scrolled through the slides, seeing the potential reach of the program, thousands of small businesses getting access to digital tools and expertise they couldn't otherwise afford. It was ambitious, but grounded, idealistic, but practical. This is incredible, I said. You've really thought this through. I had a good teacher, she said, with a small smile. Someone who showed me that business can be about more than profit margins and market share. That success can be measured in lives changed and dreams realized. Over the following weeks, we carefully rebuilt our relationship. We attended counseling together, working through the hurt and betrayal, learning to communicate better. Sarah met my new employees, listening with genuine interest as they shared their own passion for our mission. I met her nonprofit colleagues, seeing how she'd found her tribe among people who valued impact over income. The partnership between her foundation and my company became official, and we began working together professionally. It was strange at first seeing each other in this new context, but it also felt right. We were aligned now in a way we'd never been before. 3 months later, on a quiet Sunday morning, Sarah showed me the ring. She'd taken it out of the jewelry box and placed it on her dresser where she could see it every day. "I'm not ready to wear it yet," she said, "but I'm ready to work toward the day when I am. When we both are." "I'm ready too," I said, taking her hand. "To work toward it, I mean. To build something better than what we had before." And so we did. Day by day, project by project, we rebuilt trust and rediscovered love. Sarah's foundation launched with tremendous success, providing digital services to hundreds of small businesses in its first year. My company grew too, taking on larger projects while never losing sight of our core mission. The day Sarah put the ring back on almost 2 years after that awful office party, we were at another celebration. This time, it was the grand opening of the Chen's second bakery location. The place was packed with community members, local business owners, and city officials who'd come to recognize the importance of supporting small enterprises. "I'm so proud of you," Sarah whispered, sliding her hand into mine. The ring caught the light familiar, yet somehow new. "Proud of what you've built. Proud of the lives you've changed. Proud to be with someone who sees potential where others see problems." "I'm proud of you too," I said, meaning every word. "Proud of your courage to change. Proud of the work you're doing. Proud to be with someone who understands that true success is measured in impact, not income." Mr. Chen called us over to cut the ceremonial ribbon. As we stood there, scissors in hand surrounded by the community we'd both worked to support in our different ways, I realized something profound. The path that had led us here through pain and growth, betrayal and forgiveness, separation and reunion, had made us both stronger. We were no longer the couple who'd gotten engaged on a beach 3 years ago. We were partners in the truest sense, united not just by love, but by shared values and mutual respect. "Ready?" Sarah asked, positioning the scissors. "Ready?" I confirmed. We cut the ribbon together, and the crowd cheered. In that moment, I saw our future clearly, not always easy, but always meaningful. We would continue to face challenges, encounter people who didn't understand our choices, struggle with balance and compromise. But we would face it all together, secure in the knowledge that success comes in many forms, and that the most important achievements can't be measured in dollars or market share. Later that night, as we celebrated with Jim and Amy and our other friends who'd supported us through everything, Sarah pulled me aside. "Thank you," she said simply, "for giving us another chance, for showing me what really matters, for being exactly who you are." "Thank you for seeing me," I replied, "really seeing me, and for becoming someone who doesn't just love what I do but understands why I do it." She kissed me then, and it felt like both an ending and a beginning. The end of a painful chapter, and the beginning of something stronger and more authentic than what we'd had before. As we rejoined the celebration, I thought about that office party 2 years ago. In a strange way, I was grateful for it. Not for the pain it caused, but for the clarity it brought. It had forced both of us to examine our values, our priorities, our definitions of success. It had broken us apart, yes, but it had also given us the chance to rebuild ourselves and our relationship on a stronger foundation. The party that night had been about impressing others, about fitting into a world that measured worth in narrow terms. Tonight's celebration was different. It was about community, about dreams realized, and businesses thriving. It was about the kind of success that can't be reduced to a punchline or dismissed as cute or little. As I watched Sarah chatting with Mrs. Chen, genuinely interested in the baker's expansion plans, I knew we'd found our way. Not back to where we'd been, but forward to where we were meant to be. Together, building dreams our own and others, one small business at a time. The road hadn't been easy, but the most meaningful journeys rarely are. And as Sarah caught my eye across the room and smiled that warm, genuine smile I'd fallen in love with years ago, I knew that every struggle had been worth it. We were home not in a place but in a shared understanding of what truly matters, the lives we touch, the dreams we enable, and the love we build through respect, understanding, and an unwavering commitment to seeing each other for who we really are. That night, as we walked hand in hand through the city streets, past the small businesses we'd both helped in our different ways, Sarah squeezed my hand. "I love you," she said, "and I love what we're building together." "I love you too," I replied. "All of you. Even the parts that needed to grow. Especially those parts," she said softly. "They led us here, and here I realized was exactly where we belonged."